Buonasera a tutti. Good evening, everyone. My name is Louise Richardson, and I'm absolutely delighted to be the 2016 recipient of the Pavoncella Award. I feel very honored and very grateful to the committee, to the board of jurors, and to the president, Francesca Doriano, for giving me this great honor. I've seen the previous recipients, and I'm delighted to be in their company. Recognizing women and the role of women in our society has never been more important. Today, even when we think that we have arrived at equality in the developed world, very few of our political leaders are women, very few of our university leaders are women, very few of our business leaders are women. Whenever one looks at a profession, they appear to be shaped like a pyramid. The higher one goes, the fewer women one finds. But I think this is changing, and the pace of change is accelerating. And I'm delighted to see this. I hope that my generation of women will work together to ensure that our children, our daughters, will never be the first woman anything. That our daughters will compete with one another without people noticing, that they will be judged by their talent, by their intellect, not by their looks and not by the fact that they're the first woman. And I think that day will come, and I think it's approaching. But helping us along that path is the role of cultural organizations like yours, which single out women and help women progress. I think all of us who are successful have a responsibility to ensure that younger women have the same opportunities we have. The former Secretary of State in the United States, Madeleine Albright, once famously said, part jokingly, part seriously, that there is a special place in hell reserved for women who don't advance other women. And I always keep that saying in the back of my mind with a smile as I look at younger women with ambition and think about how those of us who have succeeded in our careers can be helpful to them. As I think you know, I have spent my career in the world of education, and I feel enormously privileged and fortunate to have done so. I see the role of education, and in particular universities in our society, as absolutely critical. Universities serve as guardians of our culture. They serve as engines of social mobility, as drivers of the economy. They serve as generators of ideas, and they serve as the very foundation of our democracy. So while I work hard day in, day out, I feel very privileged that I'm doing so in the name of a good cause, because it seems to me that there is no better future or no wiser way to invest than to invest in education of the next generation. It's through education also that we can integrate the newcomers into our societies. Across Europe at the moment, we are dealing with the influx of refugees. And I think it is imperative that we respond with generosity towards them and think about how many of us in previous generations were ourselves migrants to other countries. I myself come from the Republic of Ireland, and I went to university in Dublin. Through the generosity of others, I was educated in graduate school in the United States, and now I'm spending my career in the UK, first in Scotland and now in Oxford. Oxford has many links with Italy, and I'm very proud of those links and very proud to be part of this ancient university. Italy too knows all about ancient institutions, and Italy too has a long tradition of valuing universities. My particular academic work has been in the field of political violence. In particular, I work on terrorist movements. I've long been interested in trying to understand why it is that a person who in some aspect of their lives can be a caring teacher, a good parent, an upstanding member of society, and yet will join a terrorist organization and commit atrocities that violate every norm, every ethical norm, and do so in pursuit of a goal they're hardly likely to achieve. In fact, the odds of achieving them are very low. The odds of their having a very difficult and painful life are high. And yet, why do people join these groups? And how do these organizations manage to recruit? I've been working in this field since the early 1990s, and in the early years spent a lot of time reading about Italy's own terrorist group in the 1970s, the Red Brigades, who were for some time a very successful organization, a very formidable terrorist group, which managed to recruit academics, trade unionists, students, and who managed to commit a number of extraordinary atrocities. And I think in thinking about the ultimate success of the Italian government in defeating the Red Brigades, I think there are many lessons that could be learned by other societies today as we confront terrorist movements. My own view is that the best response to a terrorist group is to try to understand what drives them, to understand the underlying roots of the conflict before fashioning a response. I fear that too often governments are keen to resort to a military response when a more political response is what is required. Too often, because of the nature of the atrocities, governments tend to have overreacted, have deliberately played into the hands of the terrorists by overreacting to the atrocities that take place, and thereby escalating the violence. But it's very hard not to do that in a society with free press and public expression of outrage against atrocities and demands on the government to react, to fix a complex problem. I think in democracies it's important that we have patience, that we try to understand the nature of our enemies and then fashion a counter-terrorist response that's based on an understanding of the adversary we face. I think it's imperative that in countering terrorism, our governments do not cast whole groups together, that our governments distinguish between the actual perpetrators of the violence and the broader communities in which they operate, and not treat entire communities as suspect. I could speak at great length on the subject of terrorism and counterterrorism. It's a topic dear to my heart, although it's a fairly grim topic for an occasion such as this. So let me close by again speaking about education and the opportunity of education to transform lives. It has certainly transformed my life through the opportunities that have been accorded to me to enable me to study at some of the best universities across the globe. I've participated in this international, multinational society of students and scholars, and I feel delighted to have done so. But I'm very humbled and very honoured by the award you're giving me this evening, and I very much wish I were there in person. As I think you know, I've just started a new job, quite a demanding one, that at the moment is consuming every moment of every day. But I very much look forward to the day when I can visit you in Italy and meet you in person, and thank you in person for this very great honour. Grazie mille. Arrivederci.